Okay, well, welcome back again to the channel. It is now June 2nd, which means that I am overdue for my May wrap-up. I don't have as much to say for this month. I think this might be the shortest writing wrap-up video that I've made thus far this year. So, as usual, I will talk first about the things that I've been enjoying, and then I will talk about the things I've been learning, give you a little glance of what's to come, and then we'll wrap up from there. So beginning with things that I've been enjoying, I think I really only have a couple items per category this time, but things I've been enjoying. The first is returning to my outlining roots. So this past month I realized, and I talked about this a bit in the last video, but this past month I realized that I was not ready to write this story. I was not ready to write this book like I thought I was going to be on April 1st. A lot of April was figuring that out. So most of May has been taking several steps back and trying to restart my outline and figure out what the story is actually about. To do that, I have been consistently throughout the month, as much as I've been able to, trying to create an outline. It began first with going back to the basics, asking myself a lot of questions, trying to figure out exactly what the story was supposed to be about, kind of whittle down some of those details. And I think I'm talking about that in a second, but I kept trying to do an outline digitally and I just kept getting so overwhelmed. I kept using so many different programs. I tried to do it in Excel, I tried to do it in Readsy, I tried to do it in Word, just all these different things. I just couldn't pin down what I was trying to do, and the outline that I was trying to create, it just overwhelmed me, not being able to see it all laid out in a very specific way. So I returned to the outlining method I used to use in high school, which is a lot more tactile. So when I was in high school, when I first outlined this novel, I typed up everything that I wanted to happen. I knew that there were several different perspectives going on, so each different character I would give a certain color to, and I'd put the text in that color if it was one of their chapters or it was something to do with them. I printed out that document, I cut up the paper into a bunch of pieces so each of those paragraphs was separate, and then with all those separate papers I outlined them on my wall, I taped them up, I rearranged them until I had what looked like an outline of a book. So I have done something similar this time, but this time I used poster board and sticky notes, and I created these little outline sheets. So this is Act 1, I don't know if you can see that, not sure, but I have one for each act, and what it ended up looking like is this. So you know, there you go. So it didn't always look like this originally because I know, again, it's about 4 storylines that either eventually converge or break apart. So I had each of the 4 storylines in separate columns here. So I had all the green sticky notes here, all the yellow sticky notes here, all the pink ones here, and all the blue ones here. And recently, this past week, I went and I peeled them all off and I kind of figured out how I wanted to arrange them, and I put them into this. And from this, I have outlined the first 19 chapters. So Act 1 is almost done being outlined within the actual Excel document that I'm working in for the outline itself. But this ended up being so much more effective, and it felt so just good to return to the way I used to do it. I was able to see the story at a glance more clearly, and this method just works for me. There are so many different methods of outlining that you can use depending on the novel that you're trying to write. And all the methods that I was trying to use aren't bad methods, they just weren't working, or I couldn't really get out of my head in them. So this was a lot of fun to be able to do this and to be able to use my hands and write out all the sticky notes and arrange them like I was a mad scientist, and it was fun. I loved getting to do this, and I love being able to see my colorful little poster boards and see kind of exactly how it's supposed to be laid out in the grand scheme of things. Being able to glance at this and see generally how my perspectives are balanced, how the storyline's developing. It's just been a lot of fun. Next point, just seeing the story take shape through asking questions. So something I talked about in last month's video is how the more I looked at it, the more I realized I just didn't actually know how to succinctly describe what my story was about, and the driving force of the story was just missing. So what I ended up having to do was I just did a bunch of brain dumps. I would ask myself a question, and I would write pages and pages and pages answering the question, and then any other questions that came up while I was writing those pages, I would jot down, and then I would write pages and pages and pages answering those questions until I had whittled down all these details into, okay, I think this is where it's supposed to go. Here's all the background stuff that I was missing, or at least most of it. So I have a clearer picture of what's happening with these characters, what's happening in this world, and what is the inciting incident, all the events that happen that make the story begin and make it matter. And these were things that I was aware of before, but there were so many things that were more generalized than I realized, where I thought I had the answer and I thought it was pretty clear, and then when I actually tried to execute those ideas, it just didn't make sense, and there were so many pieces missing. So getting to really just take the time to just blabber on for I think the document I have now is 30 pages or something, where I was just yapping on and on and on about what's supposed to be happening and asking myself those questions and presenting different ways that those questions could be solved or answered, or just going into all those details. Approaching it now, I feel like I have a clearer picture, at least, of what's supposed to happen and the direction that I'm going and the structure and the meat of what's going on here. So even if this first draft is a mess, which it will be, that's what first drafts are. And again, this is, like I said in last month's video, it's just beyond the scope of my skill as a writer right now. So I know it's going to be really messy and it's something I'm going to have to continue to develop over time, but I at least have that driving force and I know, okay, here's kind of what sets everything off. Here's all the background of why it matters to these characters before we even get there. So yeah, getting to just take my time to kind of whittle away at those things, I just feel so much more secure in my position with this story right now than I did at the beginning of the month. So I will take that as a win. And then finally, I said last month, hey, if I could tell you succinctly what the novel is supposed to be about by the end of this next month, so at the end of May, I will be happy. I have a short synopsis that I can give you now. So, and I am going to read it because it's not memorized and I'm still trying to get the wording correctly, but my novel, currently untitled, is about a young princess, a poverty-stricken boy, and a grieving warrior woman. There are more characters and storylines than this, but these are the main three that we're looking at, who all have suffered from strange dreams since their early childhoods. When the star tree, called Krenak, their realm's source of light and life, starts showing signs of decay, their dreams start to morph into something more tangible and more frightening. As the dreams change, they also start to haunt their waking hours, and each begins to suspect an intelligent presence lingering at the corners of their inexplicable visions, heralding something both disastrous and divine on the horizon. It's still a little bit vague, obviously, but at least we've got a few things. One, I can tell you who the story is about. There are so many characters in this novel that I'm trying to work on, in this series that I am trying to build, but those are the main three that I'm focusing on for this book, at least. There are other characters that are just as important, but these are the three that kind of spearhead everything that's going on, mainly the young princess. But the three of them are the ones with the strange dreams. They're the ones who are noticing these patterns. So I got that narrowed downwards. These three that, at least for this first novel, are going to be the linchpin to everything going on. In particular, the young princess, but the other two supporting as well. And the inciting incident being the star tree, Krenak, starting to die. So the way that I presented it is the star tree is essentially their sun and moon. It is what gives light. It is the thing that gives them life. It is what keeps everything alive. And at the beginning of the story, our young princess notices signs of decay, and it comes to pass that they realize the star tree is dying. It has stood for eons. It's been there since the dawn of time. It's provided life for as long as they've existed, and it is beginning to rot. So that holds grand implications about the fate of the universe at stake, and it is at this moment that with these three characters who have always experienced these strange dreams, that their strange dreams begin to change into something that feels a bit more close at hand, that feels a bit more related to the events of what's going on in the kingdom. And again, that idea that there is some sort of intelligent presence kind of lingering at the corners of those visions that they don't really understand, but speaks to something greater than they are, something unfathomable, something divine, maybe trying to collide with their reality. So that is my brief general synopsis for you. I have my inciting incident, I have my three characters I'm paying attention to out of everything going on. So even though it's still vague, I am pleased with that. Moving on to things I've been learning. The first thing is how to make the best of the limited time that I have and adjusting my expectations accordingly. So, as I'm sure you know, if you've watched any of my recent videos or been on my Instagram at all, we got a puppy at the beginning of this past month. It has been so lovely having him. We love him so much. He is also a massive handful and a lot of work. We got him when he was 8 weeks. He just turned 12 weeks this past weekend, so he's just little, and he needs so much guidance and so much time. And when he's awake, which is about 2 hours at a time throughout the day, he's usually up for the first 2 hours of the day, and then he'll sleep for 2 hours, and I'll be up again for 2 hours, so it's on and off. So throughout the day, I have about 3 2-hour chunks in which I can get things done. But within this are also the things like, running errands that I need to run, such as getting groceries because we have no food in the house, or taking care of appointments that I've been putting off. Things that just come up, being a person. There are other things like cooking for myself, making sure I have clean clothes, not just me, my husband and I, that we have clean clothes, that things are clean around the house because I'm the one who's home. So taking care of administrative house tasks. So within that, usually I get maybe an hour or two a day to work on the book, or to work on things for YouTube, or to work on things for Goodreads and social media and everything I'm doing. So I've had to really learn how to optimize the time that I have and to work really well within those few hours, because Puppy has just kind of come in and dominated my routine and my schedule. And having to learn to be patient with that and accept that and just know, like, hey, he's only little once, he's gonna get bigger, he's gonna need less attention as time goes on, and trying to savor those moments now where he's tiny and crazy, because even though it's stressful and very demanding, it is also a lot of fun. It's just a very special time with him. So yeah, that's been a huge lesson this month. Is I've had to way scale back on my expectations for productivity, way scale back on the hours I'm giving to this at all, and learning how to be as productive as I possibly can within the hours that I have. It's been a little difficult. I'm used to being able, to stretch out my time and really take my time with things. That is something I mentioned in last month's video as well, that I needed to learn how to kind of scale back my hours anyway. So I was kind of forced to with the puppy, and it kind of just happened naturally. So that's the biggest lesson this month that I've been learning. What else? Patience. Relearning patience. So I have always been a very patient person. It's just part of the qualities that I normally have, but the last year or two, I have not had a lot of patience. I kind of reached a point where I finally ran out, and I haven't really been able to rebuild or retrain that muscle. And this season of life, between puppy and trying to write this book and just everything that we have going on, patience is a skill that I'm having to relearn. And it's going to help me in the long run, I know, working on retraining that muscle now, because writing a book like this, working on a project that's this big in scope and that's going to take this long, is going to require so much patience from me. And that goes into the lessons I've talked about the last few months, where I'm learning that I need to not rush, I need to be able to take my time with it. But yeah, that's another lesson that has really hit home this month, is learning to be a lot more patient with myself, with this project, with the puppy, with the people in my life around me. Like I've said in other videos, it's a general life lesson that I'm learning, but it all bleeds into the writing as well. So patience, for learning how little of it I actually have, and how that is a skill and a quality I used to have in abundance, and I used to be really good at practicing, and I need to retrain and relearn how to do well. That's been a big lesson this month as well. And then finally, I had one more point, didn't I? Yeah. And this kind of goes into the other two, but relearning how to balance my schedule. I used to be really good about juggling 100 things at once. I've always been a very busy, very involved person, and that has not changed in this month, but I've not been as good, especially this past month and in the months previous, kind of leading up to it. I was not as good about juggling those things and balancing those things, and realizing how quickly I burn out and how quickly I get exhausted, and just run out of patience for things. So learning how to balance my schedule, to make time for the people I love, to make time for myself, to make time for this work that's important, learning how to redo that and rebalance those things has been very difficult, and it's something I'm definitely still working on. But again, with puppy coming in, it's kind of made me change the way I approach everything in my life, just because he takes so much time. So learning how to juggle all these things again, I kind of went from juggling everything in the universe to a lot less, and then I think it's reached a point where I got so used to not having to juggle as much that now I'm kind of like, I can't. I'm not as good at picking the things that I've been juggling back up and learning to rejuggle them. So yeah, rebalancing my schedule, learning to use the time that I have, doing it patiently, making sure that I don't burn out creatively or just in my own life. Balance is a good word. That's maybe the thing I'm looking for. If we're looking at a theme for the things I've been learning this month, is balance, and how to work on that and how to approach that, especially with this writing project and having had to scale back so much on it this month. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Again, with puppy coming in, I really have not done a ton this month. The big thing was trying to get those little details in the plot ironed out, translating it into an outline, which I did with the poster board and the sticky notes, and then translating that into an actual chapter outline. That's been the big project, and while I'm not finished with that yet, I have made good progress. Yeah, and that bleeds into my looking ahead point. So looking ahead, things to expect from me next. My hope is to have that outline finished by the end of this week or beginning of next week. I do have a few guaranteed hours a week in which I'm able to work on this, so when I have that time, I'm actually able to carve away huge chunks of this. So I think that's a pretty realistic goal for this week, because I made it halfway through Act 1, translating sticky notes to chapter outline in Excel within like an hour. So knowing that I have a few hours where I will have dedicated time this week that I know is not going to be interrupted, I think I'll be able to get that done. So hopefully I'm looking at the calendar right now, by June 10th or 11th, I should be able to start writing again. Fingers crossed, we hope. And then I don't really have filming plans this month besides my monthly wrap-up at the end of June. This past month I've kind of done a lot with the His Dark Materials video that I just posted, and with the readathon I just posted, and with this that I'm about to post. So I'm going to scale back a little bit on video making. Obviously I'll still do the wrap-up at the end of June, and maybe I'll come up with other ideas throughout the month, but as of now, I think that's the only thing I have on the docket for YouTube at this moment. So just to wrap up, I've had such a kind response to my His Dark Materials video. I was a little nervous about posting that one because it's such a specific perspective, and it's one that I thought was going to ruffle some feathers, and I've actually had some really lovely conversations come out of that, so very pleased with that. I can't tell you the joy it brings me to be able to have those conversations and to hear from you guys, so thank you so much for engaging with that and talking to me about the things that I post, because it's so lovely to have those conversations and to be able to talk about literature and reading and writing with all of you. So thank you. If you would like to follow along with my journey this year on other platforms, I do have Instagram and Goodreads. Those are linked below. And if you would like to see more videos like this one, you can also click subscribe below. Otherwise, I think that's it for this video. Nice and short and sweet. Shortest one I've done so far, I think. So here we go. Here's June. Here's hoping to getting back to writing the actual book again, like we tried to in April and failed to do. But anyway, happy reading, happy writing. I will chat with you guys soon.